Welcome, everybody, aboard the Tabletop Express. Today, we are excited for a series that actually, the origins of come back to Ryan Clementz, who is here on the Tabletop Express for the first time visually. Ryan, I want to first and foremost welcome you. You have been on the show many times in the chat. So I'm just so excited that you're here in person. And thank you for joining tonight.
Thank you. I feel better now that I'm not like the unofficial extra member, and now that I'm actually like part of it. So,
yeah, no, we're glad to have you. And of course, Ryan Espin is here. And hey, you'll be seeing Ryan and I pretty soon again on another Monday, as we're going to have Marvel Monday coming up. But this ain't about Marvel Monday. Oh, okay. This is not about Marvel Monday, Ryan. I know we could talk about it right now. Ready. The theme of tonight's episode, which I am so excited about, is city titled games. And before we start, what went into your kind of thought process as you tried to pick through this? I know, Ryan, you do a process of just trying to get in some games you've never played before, even if it's online.
Which Ryan?
There's two Ryans, Ryan Espin.
Yeah. No, I mean, so I had to be a stickler as much as I could, because there were tons of games that I wanted to include that were not just a city title or city plus superfluous title. So like not on my list, but Brass Birmingham would not be on this list because no one calls it Birmingham. People call it Brass Birmingham, right? You know, or they just call it Brass. So King of Tokyo, same thing. That's like example. So I really had to dive into what my places, what games I have that are city based, and also because of how some Euro style board gaming tends to be, I had to just look up, is this truly a city? And then or is it just some place made up or something
right else? What about you? I don't want to call you other Ryan, so because that would just be insulting.
You can call me Squirrel. You can reference this little guy to remember that.
We're going to go with Squirrel because Squirrel is just a lot more fun than any of the other options. So what went into your process on this? You always, again, have some great suggestions in the chat. So I'm wondering, in this one, you had a chance to prepare a little bit more for what we're talking about. So interested how you kind of went into that and thought about your choices for tonight.
Well, I mean, lately I've played a lot of games, just lately. I didn't truly start jumping into this until I was actually helping Espin last year try to complete a challenge. And this year I appropriated myself the same kind of challenge. And so I've been playing tons and tons of different board games. And while I was playing, I realized that there was a lot of board games with city names in them. And so I had to go back, and I actually went through the BGG list of like top games, and I just scrolled down and down and down, and I went through probably all the games ranked like 1 to 2,000 or something like that, just to try to trigger any 5 games that I picked as my top 5. And I'm happy to say that I actually own 4 of them. So and about to own the 5th one as well, which I'll get into later. But yeah, that's how I did that.
Well, let's get right into this. By the way, going to say hello to people who are here. We got Elian25. Thanks for joining. Board Game Dads popping in. Always good to see you. Let's get into the goodness, though. And Ryan Clementz, a.k.a. Squirrel here, we're going to put you up first. So let's talk about your first pick.
Well, as a preface to all 5 of the games that I chose, I went ahead and looked up a bit of information of each of the cities prior to revealing the name of them. You know, thought I'd throw a little bit of education in there for people. So for my first one, little information about it is during most of the 17th century, Portuguese influence and rule was present in many territories we know today. One such set of territories was the shorelands of China. But one of I'm going to reference is my number 5 pick, which is by Stefan Feld, and that is Macau. Macau is a wonderful game. It's like many Feld games. It's a point salad. You can pretty much do as much as you can in this game. It's hard to set this game as any one individual mechanic, but there is resource management, there's time control in essence, based on, you have a circular disc in front of you that has these numbers, and whenever you pick up cubes, because in this game you're going to pick up cubes and you're going to place them at a certain distance away from what turn you're on right now based on the number of die. So at the beginning you roll 6 dice of different colors, and simultaneously everyone picks 2 dice of 2 different colors, and each of them has a number 1 through 6 on it. If you picked a red 6, then you take 6 red dice, six red cubes, I'm sorry, and you put it 6 turns ahead. So there's a lot of planning involved, because you're going to be using these to buy materials that are in the cities of Macau. Also, you can also use them to purchase cards, which are kind of an engine building tableau setup, where the card gives you specific powers, but obviously you can only use and play the cards if you have enough cubes. Any leftover cubes are just gone away. So you really have to plan ahead of time how or what turn you're going to be activating certain cards. Now, the interesting thing about this too is eventually you will fill up your tableau with too many cards. And if you need to take more cards, then you take something known as a punish token. And that's what it's called. It's called a punish token. And so you want, those are negative points at the end of the game. But for the most part, you are taking resources from the city. You are traveling out with your boat into the different other countries, and you're trying to sell these goods. Also, there is another card that you flip over to determine the ratio in which how much money you can spend for points. In which some turns you can spend 4 coins for 3 points, which is not great. But there's other turns where you can spend 5 coins for, say, 10 points, which is a good ratio. So you might want to think about that ahead of time. But yeah, this is a fantastic mix of everything that's very Feldian. So I love that game. And it's coming out with a new edition. I believe it's Amsterdam. It's either Amsterdam or the other one. I'm not sure. But that's going to be the edition that I'm going to get later. But that's Macau.
This one sounds really interesting to me. It definitely sounds like a Feld game, too. I mean, if I have a comment, I think it definitely sounds like a Feld game.
Yeah.
Ryan, have you played this one too?
I have. I played a long time ago. It's very much a Feld where it was a lot of kind of what Scroll was saying, like kind of the point salad that Feld is known for. Yeah, and I think it had. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I think when you place down like the cubes, it's kind of like the Mancala style, kind of like Trajan, I believe, a little bit. Or I could be completely wrong because it's been so long since I played it.
Well, when you take the cubes, as I mentioned, if the number on the die that you chose is a 2, then you place those cubes 2 spaces away.
On the win star, whatever it's called.
It looks like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that is it. We're up to a good start with this one. Ryan Espin, I know that you have a meticulous process, so I'm excited to see what your top 5 are.
I do.
Let's get this process started and see what your number 5 is.
Sure. So before we get into that, I purposely went out of my way to play to a bunch of city games I haven't played, and I only got to 2 that I really haven't played yet, and one of them made this list. The other one did not. But you're looking at right now a picture of St. Petersburg, which is my number 5 pick, St. Petersburg. Now, this is beautiful. And then there's St. Petersburg. So St. Petersburg First Edition came out in 2004, and it's available on Board Game Arena, which is where I played it. And it is essentially an engine tableau builder where on your turn, you're just purchasing cards, adding them to your tableau, and then you do the you gain the specific resources from those cards for that round. So in this case, there's a green round, a blue round, and an orange round. You see green, orange, green, blue, and orange. So at the end of the green round, you get all the goods that your green cards give you. Then you get all the goods your blue cards give you. You get all the goods your orange cards give you. And you use those goods to either purchase more cards or get victory points for the end of the game. And then there's like a cool mechanic where you have to upgrade your cards, and the money is also secret. So in the actual game, those money, like the 1 through 25, the bills, they're actually secret on the other side. So you're keeping all your money face down because it could be very vital information how much money you have, because on your turn you only buy 1 card, and there's only 8 cards available at a time. to purchase from, up to 8. And you also could, instead of purchasing a card, you could add it to your hand and hold on to it, which could give you negative victory points. And it's also a very decisive. It's a very divisive game, because I know a lot of people didn't like it, and then a lot of people do like it, because it can be really cutthroat, and it's a game too where if you do something wrong, you're pretty much out for the rest of the game.
Ooh, that can be tough.
Yeah,
that can be really hard on. So it's not a game then if you it's not the game you're starting someone with. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you could, because that's the other thing too, because it is pretty tough like that, but you could easily set up a quick game to do. You could set it up quickly to do it again, because it's literally just cards that you just be spitting out.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's really, really well done. I played it with 2 players. I played it with 3. I think I like it in that range. I haven't done it at 4 or 5, and I feel like that might be a little too much. And yeah, this is St. Petersburg. So I haven't been to St. Petersburg, Russia, but I think I've been through Florida, St. Petersburg. So close enough, maybe.
Well, look, I have to tell you guys, for me, I was very excited because for this, I went out to Twitter, and the TT Express, because you can't write that all on Twitter, on Twitter. And I said, hey, what are some of your favorite city games? Now we got some good questions in there. Clearly there's an interest in doing something with fictional cities, just as a throwing it out there that people would love the idea of fictional cities. But as we went through this, took the names of the actual city games. And this is a list of some of the most popular ones. So this is not going to be like either of your lists. That's definitely going to vary probably a little bit, but I think we're going to see some that don't surprise you and some other ones that you may not expect. I'm excited in particular, though, because we really did get some great participation, and we'll definitely do some shout outs as we go through tonight. The first pick was by Mara, Canna Be Blue on Twitter, and that was, as you can see, a beautiful shot here of London, and we are going to talk about London. Now, I did pull some facts really quick, just so you know, Ryan, because I felt like, man, he came and he brought it. So I got a fact. Big Ben is not actually called Big Ben. It's meant to go by the name the Clock Tower. So, there you go. That's a London fact.
I knew that.
Yeah. I don't know if everyone knew that, but talking about London, this is a game that I believe is in its 2nd edition in 2017. And this is a brand new edition of this popular classic. And it's going to appeal very much to the strategic thinker. One of the most unique features of the game, as I went into this, because I didn't actually get a chance to play London myself, but I was fascinated by this one, was a unique mechanism where you're playing cards to develop the city, then the running of the city, or the city of taking all the card actions simultaneously, and then players have to repay all their loans before the game ends. But really, you only need to worry about how much poverty you're creating relative to the other players. So it sounded extremely interesting. Designer Martin Wallace, artists include Mike Atkinson, Natalie Burek, and I am going to butcher this. I'm not even gonna try it here, but please go look on Board Game Geek because I feel bad not saying it. But yeah, this one I will just say, honestly, it looks good on the table. Obviously, as you can see here, it's got some beautiful artwork. So to me, the idea with this game and the idea of London, I can understand it. And the box is simple yet beautiful for me. And that's one thing that actually stood out was this box that it looked like something I wanted to take off and read. As straightforward and simple as it is, it wasn't over the top. So definitely grabbed my attention. But that's London, and that was the 5th one on my list.
That's a Martin Wallace game, right? So
yes.
Yeah. I definitely want to try it.
As soon as you said loan, I was like that. I looked at the designer and said Martin Wallace.
That's absolutely Martin Wallace. Yeah. Martin Wallace is a really interesting designer. I really love Brass Birmingham. That he did that, and I love A Study in Emerald, which is a completely weird blender of board game mechanics put into one. And it's crazy that the guy who made Brass also made that game. So
I mean, to bounce off the fantasy city idea as well, another big one that Martin Wallace made that would be definitely on my city fantasy city section would be Discworld Ankh Morpork for Terry Pratchett. So
that's a fun one.
Let's get back to real cities for you, because Ryan Clementz is up next with his number 4 pick.
Okay, little information about my number 4 pick. I have to do this in kind of like a mystery science theater kind of way, but the date is November 1st, 1755. Mm-hmm. The place, the Iberian Peninsula of Portugal. People were just carrying on with their lives until out of nowhere, rumbles filled the streets. The rumbles grew into a cataclysmic earthquake that ruined thousands upon thousands of homes. One port city got hit the hardest, and that city was Lisbon, or Lisboa. So as far as Lisboa is concerned, this game, I'm not going to lie, I just recently played. In fact, to set up for this video, I decided to try it out. I had never played it before. It turned out to be absolutely fantastic. The game is by Vital Lacerda, and he is known for his very structurally small, large thinking games with little things that you have to do and try to put them together in the best way possible. But there's just so many things you can choose from. When you actually get to learning this game, though, it's actually quite pleasant and pretty simple, to be quite honest. It fits along the lines of Concordia, where you play a card and you do the effect of the card, except for in this game, you play a card and you can choose whether or not to put it in your tableau, and you can use it to gain production in influence, or you can put it below and you can get ongoing effects throughout the game. Instead of doing that, you could also play the card out and get either the king's favor, or you can get influenced by one of the builders or the marquis, and they give you special benefits that you can choose to do. For example, the builder, you can remove rubble from the city and you can place down stores to try to clean out what the earthquake caused in Lisboa. The king itself can give you the opportunity to get extra turns for the most part. Like you can get a crown from one of the other builders, and you can follow somebody who does that on their turn. So if somebody else takes the marquee action and you have one of those king's favor tokens, you can play it after they do their action to do the action as well on their turn. So it's a lot of open information. That's a great thing about this game too. Plenty of information out there for you to see, so you can kind of feel what you want to do, but the cards you get are going to influence the direction that you take in this game. It seems like a lot, and the artwork is beautiful, and that is going to be my number 4, which is Lisboa.
Great pick. I think I have to say, for me, again, I like a visual appeal of the game, so it does grab my attention. And then when you get into kind of just the inner workings of the game, it sounds like a game that also keeps your attention, which to me are the two winners of anything that you have to put a top 5 to. And I will say this, and I don't pretend to be the most cultured person, but I don't think I talk about Lisboa all the time as either the city or the game. And for me, that's something that clearly needs to change, because this one, you grab my attention just with your basic description of the mechanics.
Yeah, it's a pretty light game. It's a pretty easy game. I could probably teach it in 5 seconds. We could play it in 5 minutes. No, I'm kidding. Complete opposites.
Once you said Lacerda and simple.
Yeah. Lacerda is known for some pretty heavy games, both in game weight and also weight itself. It's a heavy box.
I don't think there's, but the thing that I always say is, and on this channel, a lot of times we're talking about games that are easy to teach or something, but eventually you're going to move up, and learning doesn't stop, necessarily at one point. You can continue to learn. Yeah. But what I want to learn, Mr. Espin here, is what
hang on. I'm not ready yet. I need to talk a little more about Lisboa, because I have Lisboa. I've been dying to try Lisboa. I almost tried Lisboa with you, Squirrel. I just couldn't sit down and do it. Not because I don't want to. I actually spent a lot of time watching rules videos on it, and I'm really excited to play it. It will likely make my list if this list was done maybe next week. But I really am excited about trying Lisboa. And yeah, that's it. That's all.
Reach out to me. I'll teach you.
I know. I really want to. Okay. All right.
Before you
But
go
I
this
will.
week, you
But
do
I
have a
will.
list this week, and
I
this
know.
might make so you're gonna have to tell me if it's gonna end up getting kicked out after you play it. But
I will.
you're number 4.
My number 4, actually, Squirrel also taught me last year as well. So he actually taught me here in this beautiful little hut. We rented out mostly for honeymooners, but we had to make an exception. And this is, of course, the Polynesian island of Bora Bora right here, which that's the name of the game, Bora Bora, which is another Stefan Feld game, who made Macau earlier. Who also made Castles of Burgundy and Trajan. You guys know Stefan Feld if you're watching this. And if you don't, try out Bora Bora, because it's a really fun one, but don't try it out as your first. So let's talk about Bora Bora. So in Bora Bora, you're rolling dice and you're doing the actions, much like Monopoly. No, I'm kidding. When you roll the dice, you actually take those dice and you place them on specific actions on the board. And the higher the number, usually the better thing you can take by doing from that action. So you could take specific tiles from different areas, but the problem is the higher the number you have on there, you can't put another number of equal or greater value than what is currently on there. So you have to put down a lower value number to go on there, and that lower value number won't give you as good of a thing, but at least you get to do the thing. It's a really interesting trade-off too, because you're kind of deciding how you want to go about with your dice, but you also want to keep an eye on your other players, because you want to see what they're doing and make sure they don't run away with the game, because they could run away with the game if you're not paying attention to that. It's a Feld game, so there's a lot of different options of things you can do with the dice. There's a little bit of set collection. There's a little bit of area control even. But at the end of the game, everything pretty much gives you points, and the player with the most points wins.
So we're talking Feld. So in other words,
yeah, point salad.
You got point salad.
Yeah.
And again, nothing wrong with point salad.
No.
It can be a ton of fun. It can be overwhelming sometimes, I think, in certain Feld games, but in the long run, if you like point salad, Feld will give that to you, and he'll give it to you in pretty much a lot of variety across his games. So
yeah.
And I think that's great about him, because thematically you can go a lot of different ways with him.
If it works, yeah. I still don't really truly know the theme of Bora Bora, other than you can get a man tile or a woman tile, or there's jewelry, or you can put a priest out, and hey, there's that's Bora Bora.
Some people want to see a city name on a box. I will say that can get people. I mean, I have Polynesia, which is nothing to do with Polynesia, but it's a great game.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is probably my second favorite Feld. My first being Castles of Burgundy. It's a really solid game. And I want to hear your thoughts on this one, Squirrel, because I know you like this one a lot.
This one is a good one. This one is definitely one of the Felds where you really want to try to be first player, either that or you're right. You definitely want to look around at your opponents, because you are going to probably change your strategy up just because you know that they want that. And you need to stop them from doing that, or they will win the game. So it's a very cutthroat game, and this game is definitely much better at higher player counts, just because I'm going to make up a word, cutthroatiness of it.
Yeah, sure. We'll use that. Huge. That's good.
Well, I will say, just so you both know, the next one I have not got a chance to play in particular, but the community seems to like it. So we had to feature it. I'd argue the person who's been on this channel most, Board Game Dads, who I know is in the chat earlier, loves this game, and that is Santa Monica. Now, I've been here. I love this location. It's a wonderful place to visit. We don't have too many in North America tonight, from my understanding either. I don't think we have that many, so this is going to be one of them. But Santa Monica, what a great looking game, first and foremost, let me say. I mean, you look at these meeples, they've got some character to them. You got these tourists, and this is a game where you do want to create the most appealing neighborhood in Southern California. And is it going to be calm and quiet? It's going to be full of tourists, or is it something in between? That's the description that you're going to find in Board Game Geek. But in each turn on this game, you are drafting cards, and you're either building up a beach or your street. So you've got this card drafting mechanic going on, and you're working to do these features together to score the most points. Most points wins. Fairly straightforward. This one, designer Josh Wood, and AEG is the publisher. Honestly, this one seems to have picked up a lot of love early on in its life. It is a 2020 game, so it's relatively new. But I can just say that to me, it's one that caught my eye visually and from a gameplay perspective. When I heard about card drafting and some things like that, gets me excited because to me, those are all things that I like. Don't know if either of you have played it. I do want to highlight that Board Game Dads is in here. I see a woot woot out there. So I figured he might appreciate this one, and credit to do, this was his photo. I did inquire with him to grab me a photo because I saw it mentioned once or twice. So, thank you for that photo to Board Game Dads.
I think this was part of one of your earlier lists too with him, right? Was it the modern board game intros or?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, so we have a thank you on that one because I believe he mentioned it might have been in the last one. He could confirm it, but we've been talking about great games that introduce kind of mechanics of certain games with modern games, and this definitely came up in that. So it is a nice one potentially to introduce people to gaming with based on some of the mechanics in it.
Yeah, it looks really cool. It is definitely something I want to try at some point. And that's an Ice Cream fan.
It's something I've been wanting to play for a short little while now. I have and it looks like a nice light game where you can share with friends, and it's just it looks really nice. I would definitely like to try this out. If you don't want to send it to Jersey, I can try it out.
Yeah, no, again, I've heard rave reviews, but Ryan, we want to go back to you now because we are at our third round of picks and you are up next.
Okay, information about my third. In the late 1860s, there was an era that began in Japan called the Meiji Restoration. In this period, cities in Japan developed a new political and social structure. They also began to rapidly industrialize itself using foreign technology and help so that it can modernize. And this was especially apparent when merchants made an impact on how the city of Yokohama rose. Yokohama is my number 3, and it is a fantastic game where, depending on the number of players, there is a large display in the middle, as you can see in that picture there. So that picture right there, I think, is just a 3-player game. In a 4-player game, it's a bigger tableau than that. And what you're doing is you are kind of playing follow the leader depending on where you're placing your apprentices. So you have a main merchant. You are a merchant, by the way, and you're trying to go around and get materials in order to set up shops in Yokohama. And then you're also using those to trade, and you're also trying to get influence from foreign ministers and ambassadors to help you do more on your turn. So in this game, you are first placing apprentices, and then you are placing your president or your main merchant on one of those spots. Hold on one second. Apologies, my alarm was going off. But you're placing your president on one of the spots that your apprentices are at. And when you activate your president, depending on how many merchants are there, plus the president, plus if you have a shop there, you add all that together, and that's the power of activation that you have on that spot. So if you have, say, 2 apprentices and then you place your president on there, then that's a power of 3, and you can possibly pick up 3 fish. Or you can get 3 gold from the bank, or yen, actually. You can also make 3 trades, or you can add more faith to the church, and there's a church board, and then there's a port board where you can get orders, and you can try to fulfill those orders with the items that you have. You can increase your technology, and you have your own board, so you're placing out your shops, and so you have to keep and manage all your resources, plus you have to manage how many people are going to go to that spot, because you can't land or go through you can't land on the same spot as another person's president. So there's a lot of blocking in this game, especially with a smaller board. But This is a great game that I suggest you try if you have not. I do not know, Chris, have you played this game?
This is on the list. I believe this is on a list of probably like 50 games.
That's
that
it?
was brought to my attention. Yeah. Well, no, let me be specific. The list of 50 games brought to my attention before, essentially before the start of the pandemic. And that shut everything down. And I was not into Board Game Arena and other stuff, honestly, until probably 4 months ago. So if things were online, wasn't seeing them or wasn't playing them. So
that is true. It's on Board Game Arena.
Yeah. So I got to play this, add it to the Board Game Arena queue, I suppose is what we can say now.
I'm going to comment on this, but that's because we're going to go right into mine, because it is the same exact pick at the same exact number. So yeah, you can go on and pull that, because my number 3 is also Yokohama. Am I on mute?
Do you
No.
Do you have any historic information to add to it?
Yeah. So no, I don't. Where is it? There it is. Hey,
it's right here, guys.
Yeah, there it is. My number 3 is also Yokohama. So I played with Squirrel on Board Game Arena, and this game is really fantastic. Exactly what Squirrel was saying. You're moving your president around, you're dropping people off, and depending on who's there, the quantity of your people that are there, you get to take out X number of items. So it has there's a lot of tactics going on, because there is a lot of blocking. So you need to really think about like how can you shift your gear, but at the same time, you really need to kind of have some sort of strategy in place where you're actually having your people on that spot for you to do that particular action at that particular time. There's also, those cards over there, I believe, are limited, right, Squirrel? Yeah. So there is a tension to actually get those, and it is really, really, really great. My picture is just the retail version, I believe. I think your picture was the deluxe Kickstarter edition, but this is what it would look like, I believe, if you got it in retail. I haven't bought it yet. I'm gonna get it at some point. I'm sure of it. And yeah, it's great, and it's on Board Game Arena, so everything is automated there for you. You can go play it right now. It's a really, really solid choice and a really good game.
Well, obviously it gets that is a crossover right there. So obviously that means a ton of support. Mine comes from the community. This is the number 3 from the community. I saw this a few times, and I want to make sure we include it because this is a 2-player option. And I love this beautiful visual. And it sets up the stage for what is Glasgow. Now, let me just tell you, with this one, which is Lookout Games, it's a 2020 game. It's a 2-player game. This one, moving up the ranks fairly effectively on Twitter, but not necessarily a ton of buzz on Board Game Geek or something like that. But I will just say about this one, the players are traveling the city in this abstract manner to collect resources. We're going to be taking actions, and we're going to be constructing buildings. Ultimately, I think with a lot of 2-player games, as I dug into this game, what I found interesting was you have to place the first building in particular in play, and then every subsequent building has to be adjacent to something else that was built. And I do kind of like that mechanic and that idea of building around. And basically, as soon as this 20th building is built, the game ends and players score points. This game in particular, for me, I enjoy 2-player games. So to feature a 2-player game was something I wanted to do from the community. And I want to give credit where it is due on this one. So I'm actually going to go back and make sure I say it. But this came from on Twitter, To Play That Pod. So thank you to Play That Pod for sharing this, and you can go check them out on Twitter as well. Again, my gratitude to the community for coming out and really sharing some nice games with us, and some different picks from what both the Ryans are sharing to kind of spread the word on some of these other city games.
Yeah, Glasgow, thank you very much for showing me that. I actually forgot about that. At one point in time, a long time ago, I definitely wanted to play it. and it looked really unique. And I guess at that time I was more into trying the brand new games of the time, but that one looks very interesting. And you just brought up the hype for me to try that again, so I definitely want to try it.
Yeah.
Well, check it out. I want to check this one out as well. I saw it literally sitting, and I should have bought it in that moment, but sitting on the shelf at my local store, Ryan's as well, just the other day. And I was saying, I'm thinking about including that. Should have bought it. And I did not. So I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry because we have gone for some great games. And Ryan Clementz, I know, has his second coming up, which is another good one. I mean, we're getting down to your top two. So we know they're going to be good.
Nitty gritty. Yes.
The nitty gritty.
Okay. So for my number two, let's talk about it. The Age of Discovery was a period from the 15th century to the 18th in most of the seafaring European countries, especially with Spain and Portugal. Artistic influence and educational necessity rose during this time, but one city in particular during this time was deemed as the cultural center of the country, and that city is my number two, which is Coimbra. Coimbra is in Portugal, and this is a very, very colorful game. Chris Williams is just a fantastic artist when it comes to these things, but Coimbra is a game that has mechanics that I have almost never seen before. I've played this game a long time ago, and I fell in love with it as soon as I saw it, just because the bright colors brought me in. And then when I played it for the first time, I was a little confused until about 2 or 3 turns in, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually a fantastic game. In this game, at the beginning, you roll the dice, and there are dice with different colors, and then have different, you will roll the different numbers 1 through 6 on it. And what you're going to do is you're going to draft the dice. So you're one at a time, you're going to draft the dice, and you're going to place them in these little castle little things like shown in the picture. And then the third phase is everyone placing the dice on one of the rows on the left-hand side. Mm-hmm. And there are 4 rows or columns. There's 4 rows. And the top row gets you like one-time benefits. And the second, third, and fourth row have cards in them. And you're trying to place your higher die. So in this phase, the number on the die matters, because the number that you place, if you have a higher number there, then you are going to probably be first to pick. But depending on the number that you choose, that's how much you pay in goods. So if you place a 5, you have to pay 5 money or 5 military in order to take a card, depending on what's on the card. And the cards are a tableau building thing where each of them have special powers depending on when you take it. So some cards do immediate effects, and some of them do effects during certain periods of the game. After that, you determine player order, and then the 5th round is when you do what's known as production, basically. If you see in the picture on the top right-hand side, you'll see 4 columns go down of the different colors. In this phase, the colors of the dice matter, because when you get production, you're going to have 3 dice, and so if you had a purple die, you're going to take it off of your board and you're going to put it back into the pool, and you're going to take the purple action, which is to move your person around the cities that are nearby, near Coimbra. Coimbra is the one that's in the center, kind of like Orleans. If you do orange, then you're going to get money. If you do the gray, then you're going to get military. And if you get green, you're just going to get points or influence. And this game is just a nice mix of all sorts of different mechanics, and it works really well together. So I strongly suggest Coimbra if you haven't played this already. So
this, I remember seeing this one, wanting to play it really bad. I didn't play a complete game of it, but I know I kind of started to play and was trying to learn at it. I believe it might have been at PAX Unplugged even that I was playing with someone. I was impressed overall, but I didn't play the full game, so I didn't get the true full experience. But it is one that I would jump to the table to play if I saw it on the table and someone said, "Hey, would you like to play a game of Coimbra?" I'd go play it. And I have some other games from the same designer, I believe. So
how does it
the Italian Dream Team?
How does it compare to Alma Mater? Because it's
that's actually really interesting, because I have Alma Mater from Christmas, not
there you go.
have a box, so I'd love to to know what you think
Alma
there.
Mater is quite different.
Okay.
Alma Mater has to do with your own personal tableau, and you control the players control the economy. In this game, no, you have your own thing, and it's definitely cutthroat when it comes to the bidding on cards phase. But aside from that, you are pretty much doing your own thing. So,
so you can own both essentially, which I think there's not really a conflict of do I want one or the other. It's definitely don't feel bad about that.
Yeah.
That's great. That's always good to hear. Sometimes we do run into that, I know, in the hobby. Ryan, what do you have for your number 2?
Oh, there they are.
Wait a minute. There they are. But look at that art. Look at that art. I mean,
yeah, that's why I was wondering how close it is, because it looks like the same. I mean, it's not just the art, but it's the same graphic design too, like the same.
Yeah,
well,
they use the same.
You
the
can
same art for
tell
the cards for each different game, but they're completely different games. Like
Sure.
I would not compare them. Is all I can say.
Well, speaking of comparing, I don't want to compare your picks, but what is your number 2, Ryan?
Me? Okay. So you can go on to the picture because I haven't been here, but it does actually look like the game board itself. So this is the city in France called Troyes, and my number 2 pick is Troyes. So Squirrel brought up the word cutthroatiness. I'm excited because this game bleeds. This game bleeds so much. Yeah. So Troyes is a really, really, really awesome game. Basically, on your turn, you're rolling dice, and the number of dice you roll are dependent on what meeples you have in the 3 cities of the board: the church, was that City Hall, and I forget but the white, yellow, and the red building. And on your turn, you're rolling those dice, and then you're putting them in front of you, and you're using either your own dice to do specific actions on the board, or you can use other players' dice and take it from them and use and give them money to use their dice, which is a really, really cool mechanic. And the buildings are very tight together, right? There's no social distancing whatsoever, and when you want to add one of your meeples into those buildings, the vending machine the meeple to the right off of the building, and that person will no longer have access to that die. But not only that, there's like people attacking your city every turn, and you all need to work together to make sure you are fighting those guys off. So but you don't want to do that all the time because you want to use your dice for other things too. And yeah, it is really, really cool. And also, everyone has a secret objective with a way to win. So there's certain things that you may want to be focused on, and you got to keep an eye to what other people are doing. But this game is electric when you're playing with people that know what they're doing, and it is nuts. And even if you play with people that don't know what they're doing, it's a really fun experience. The first game I ever played, I got obliterated, but I had a great time because I was playing with 3 people at a boarding convention that all knew Troyes. And so I went to the boarding convention. It was the morning. I set up Troyes on the table, and this one guy walked by like, "Oh, Troyes, you're playing Troyes? Yeah, sure. You want to play? Yeah, do I? I love Troyes. I could teach you Troyes." And then, no joke, like 30 minutes later, another guy walks by as I'm being taught. "Oh, you're playing Troyes? I love Troyes. I haven't played Troyes in forever. I'm so excited someone's playing Troyes. I want to play Troyes." And then a third guy came, and we had a full 4-player game of, "Oh, you're playing Troyes." And I'm very happy to be one of those people now that have joined that group of walking past the table and stopping what I'm doing to play a game of Troyes. Because Troyes, oh my God, Troyes. Troyes is so good. So I have Troyes here. This is the Ladies of Troyes, which is a really skinny box. It's the expansion, but it has the base game and the expansion in here. I've yet to play with the expansion. I just bought it because it's a skinnier box. And but Troyes is so great. You can play that also on Board Game Arena. I usually nickname it the Cutthroats of Burgundy because it really does feel like that.
It looks better than Burgundy.
Oh yeah, looks wise, it's better. But man, Troyes is like, oh man, it's again the cliche of knife fight in a phone booth. It is very much that, but up to 4 players in that phone booth.
I want to make I do want to make a note here, Ryan, that we did actually have a mention of this. It didn't make the video, but Jason Moore on Twitter, _deck_of_51 actually did note this. He was, I think he might have been the only one who mentioned it in the Twitter thread, but it did get a recommendation. So I want to get that.
He was one of those people. He's probably one of those people that will stop what he's doing to play Twa. Yes. Later on, I know Twa was kind of has like a spiritual successor, which is Black Angel. I haven't played Black Angel yet. I know, Squirrel, you love Black Angel. I know you like it more than Twa. I don't know if I'm going to like it more than Twa. You don't know if I'm going to like it more than Twa, so you said. But
I don't know, but as much as you're praising it right now, I don't know.
Yeah. Twa can be also a very divisive game too, because it is very cutthroat. It's really fun though. Yeah.
Well, I will say this. I don't think the community was nearly as cutthroat as some of your choices, and I love it. I love your cutthroat choices, but I do think this next one can sometimes be a little cutthroat, not quite to that level, but you do have to take actions that to potentially block other people and things like that. Not to, of course, to the level degree that you have spoken to, but this one is a one that I love quite a bit myself. And if you cannot tell from this image, we are talking about Istanbul. Now, this one in particular was introduced to me personally, and I knew about the game, but more recently I played it for the first time. If you look at this game, it's a fun game to pull out. It doesn't take too long to set up. And when you're actually looking at it, as I bring it to the full screen here, there is a great description on Board Game Geek about this, that there's a hustle and bustle at Istanbul's Grand Bazaar as merchants and their assistants run through narrow alleys in their attempts to be more successful than their competitors. Now, you want to be the first merchant in this game to collect all these rubies. In the end, the first to 6 rubies wins. So there's not a score in some of the ways we've talked about a lot of these games. It is the first 2 kind of game. But the tiles in this game all have different actions. There's a big box expansion of this as well that comes with a variety of other ways to play. Now, what's great about this game is you are going around and you have your assistants. You actually are just dropping off your assistants at places to do the actions. But when you run out of assistants, you have to take the steps back to either pick up another assistants or your other assistant, or go back to a tile that will bring them all back to you. So you have to think strategically about how you're moving around the board. What are you collecting? Also, as you play this game, as you go to certain tiles, what's going to happen is the cost is going to go up. So I know if someone really wants to buy a certain, go to a certain tile, I can go there, do the action to make it so, because one of the things is you've got a cart essentially that you can expand your storage of. Maybe if I can get there first, expand it, now it becomes a little bit more expensive and then more expensive. So if you can repeat some actions, you can have a little bit of that take that happening. Now, you don't feel as bad about the take that in this because it's all kind of got to happen. But as you play this with more and more people, it definitely feels tighter and you get a little bit more of that. And it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of cards I can't even speak to in this. There's one where you essentially can increase the wheelbarrow capacity I've mentioned. There's others where you're selling goods for money and you do need that money. But for me, this game has so many different ways to play. If you look it up, you can see just some of the possible actions. We don't have enough time in this video to talk about all the possible actions, let alone with the expansions. But what a great game. I love Istanbul. It's just a good one. And I owe some introductions to this game to other people. And that in particular is one of my local friends here to me in Verona, New Jersey, who brought me onto this. And now I play with him on Steam, probably, every few weeks. So great game. And has a very good digital iteration on Steam, I would know. It's really well done.
I definitely do like the fact that this game also makes it so you can't capitalize on one thing. You have to kind of spread yourself in order to do well at the game. So
that's a really good point. It's definitely not a game where you focus in one area. Like, I'm going to get this and sell, because you've got to move around this board. And I should note it can be randomized. So when you looked at it, you don't have to play with the base set way that they say, hey, start with this. you randomize it every time. So you're not getting the same game over and over on repeat, which can be boring for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I actually I played the digital implementation, and it's a pretty solid app. Like, it's really well done how they did it. I still get to play it in person. I've only played on digital implementation. If you do like Istanbul, Yokohama, I feel like does that as well in spades.
Agreed.
Yeah. Just saying. 2 out of 3 Ryans. Well, 2 out of 3 people here agree.
Well, we're not going to talk about 2 or 3 now. We're going to talk about number 1. We're going to go over to you, Ryan Clementz, and we're going to talk about what your number 1 is.
Well, my number 1 game, a little information about this one. Nestled in the shadows of the Cerro Mountains of Mesoamerica lie many fantastic structures. There is the Ciudadela, or the Citadel, which is found on one end of the Avenue of the Dead. On the other side is a structure built around 200 AD called the Pyramid of the Sun, which is the main focus of one of these this game, which is all found in the great city of the gods, and it's called Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan is, believe it or not, my number 3 favorite game of all time. So I'm kind of glad that I was able to explain this game to you guys. But Teotihuacan is a rondel-style dice placement or moving game where you're doing all sorts of things on the board depending on where tiles are. The tiles can be, well, some of the tiles can be randomized, 6 of them, in fact. And what you're doing is you have 3 dice to start with, and they all start specifically at the number 1. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to choose a die on your turn, and you're going to move it up to 3 spaces around the board in a clockwise fashion. And whatever you land on, you do that action depending on how many of your dice is there. So if you move, pretty much kind of like Yokohama, so imagine that. Mm-hmm. But if you move, you can get perhaps 1 cacao or cocoa, or that's how you feed your workers, by the way. There is feeding workers in this game, like many Tashini games. But if you have 2 dice there, then you could potentially get 2 stone. Or if you have another worker there and you have all 3 there, you could get 3 stone and 3 points. Or you can bump up on one of the tracks. There is a temple tracks. There are 3 of them. One of them usually gives you resources, 1 is points, and 1 is cacao, so you can feed your workers. On the other side, there's the Avenue of the Dead, where if you get to number 6 on your die, you are going to ascend them, and ascending them, they sacrifice, and they make you go up on the Avenue of the Dead track. And as you're going up there, you're going to get more points at the end of the game, depending on how many houses are built for that. Last but not least, the center of the board, you see the giant pyramid structure, which is made of these beautiful tiles. They're very thick, really well-made tiles, and you can start building up this this pyramid using an action on the board, and you can get plenty of points based on how high or where you place the tile, like what level it is on. You can also get bumps on the track when you do that as well. There's just all sorts of things you can do to this game, and the great thing in my particular point on this game is the fact that it is mostly open information, so you can see practically everything that's out there, but you can't, I'm going to try to put this in a good way as possible. There is no broken strategy in this game. It can be completely different every single time. Mm-hmm. There's no bad strategy. There's no really, really good strategy. It's just you have to manage your dice and what you do, because you have to pay cocoa if you also land on a space owned by another player, or where another player is, depending on how many there are there. So it's going to be different every single time you play it, and it is fantastic. So this is Teotihuacan.
I love that visual in the middle, because it does make you, when you see it, have that. I don't want to. I mean, it's not, I guess, the same as what you experience, right? Because I don't know, but it does sound like that. Like, oh, is that so and so? Like, I want to try this, or this may be more like, what is that?
Yeah, it's got good table presence. It absolutely has a good table presence. And those pieces are chunky. They're really nice.
That's always great when they are great, because, we talk about the look and feel of a game, and there is a difference when you're picking up a piece, having to use it and place it somewhere. That's why we do these. They have a tactical feel to them, and that does matter. If we've learned anything in the past year, the tactical feel of a board game cannot be redone online. And so I love that. So really good point. And again, this is definitely your number one for a reason, obviously.
Yes.
Chris, have you tried this one yet?
This one I have not played.
It's really cool.
Board Game Arena.
Yeah, it's on Board Game Arena. So I
add it to the list.
A really cool thing about it. So what Ryan was saying before, they get to pay cacao to feed your workers. But I've heard it brought up before where when you land on a space, not only you have to basically you have to feed workers based off of who's there. So you're kind of like feeding the classroom essentially. So the number of dice, like what different dice are there, you have to spend that much and bring enough for the rest of the class when you take an action. I think that's a really cool concept. It's definitely my favorite of that, though, like between Teotihuacan and Sulcan, like those
games,
the T games, right? And it also falls in the same category as Targi, where it has an expansion called Teotihuacan. The expansion period, right? Was that one of them, or a late expansion, or
the late pre-classic?
The late the late pre-classic expansion, which is like a weird title for an expansion. So
also Shadows of Gitli, but
yeah, that one's more exciting. I think they learned their lesson.
Well, Ryan, we've learned a lot from you tonight with some great choices. What is your number one?
Cool. So let's go on now back to France. Not too far from Troyes. This is a picture from Orléans. Orléans is my number one pick. So let me talk about tactile, because man, this game is tactile. Orléans is a bag builder. So what that means is those little pogs that you see over there, you're going to be adding them as if they were cards to your deck, but your deck is a bag. So you take those pogs, you drop them in a bag, and each turn you're grabbing X number of pogs and then adding them to your board. And when you add them to your board, you have a specific board of just actions that you can do. And those actions are based, you could do those actions if you use different kinds of workers, like you use a farmer or a boatsman or a knight, and you just, like the red or the white or the brown blue one, you put those on those spots and you get to carry out that action that turn. You're going to be constantly recruiting and adding those in, but then there's also these tracks that you're moving up, and those tracks will either give you different money. One of them allows you to draw more things from your bag. Another one allows you to go up this like knowledge track. Another one allows you to even go around the board and collect goods. At the end of the game, you score points based off of that knowledge track multiplied by the number of citizens, I believe you have, which are those like little cutouts of the yellow. I could be completely wrong about the scoring, but I know it's something like that where you multiply. And I think it's number of houses you have out of 2 on the board. But anyways, Orléans is quite a game. And what's really even more exciting about Orléans is the expansion, Orléans Invasion, which Orléans is a great game that you're versing each other, but Orléans Invasion introduces a co-op variant that completely turns it on its head. And I honestly prefer it that way, the co-op style. It just feels better. And Orléans, I believe, was the first game to have the Geek Up bits from Board Game Geek. So I have those, the acrylic like Azul tile style ones. And yeah, if you like bag builders and want something a little meatier than Quacks of Quedlinburg, which nothing wrong about Quacks, I love Quacks. But if you want something like that, Orléans is fantastic. I don't know if this was the first bag builder. I don't know if Hyperborea came up before or after this one. And even then, I'm not even sure if that was the first bag builder. But it's not a mechanic that's done too often.
This also had like a super sale. I bought it then. Mm-hmm. That was going on. I missed the big super sale, but I got the second best option. And it misses out on that co-op. So I need that co-op because I'm just very excited about it. And if I am not mistaken, does that not add a solo?
It does
to it as well.
It does, but I've done the solo one. I think it's better off just doing the the Orleans Invasion as solo and just two-handing it. I think it's a better experience. But it's gorgeous, it's such a great production. And there was a Kickstarter edition. I don't have the Kickstarter edition, but the retail one is just as good. It's great. So don't feel like you're missing out. I don't think it's worth completionist wise, especially because it misses some of because you place these things just at random, like the goods, but the goods in the deluxe edition are they're 3D goods and stuff. Yeah. But teach your own. But the upgrade bits, absolutely necessary. They're fantastic. They feel great. So that's my number one, Orleans.
Well, I again, some great choices. I would love if anyone is watching YouTube. I've seen y'all fairly consistently here tonight. So if you have some favorite city titled games that you want to drop, now would be a great time to drop. I'm going to go into my community pick. That got the most mentions actually shortly between DMs, Twitter, and many other places. But if you've got some choices, drop it in on the chat wherever you may be, Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube, and I will get into mine in the meantime while some of you drop some of your favorites in, hopefully. But guys, this is not going to shock you, Ryan, that this came up. Especially anyone who knows me also knows that I love this game. This is my wife's number one favorite game, and this is the City of Carcassonne. And here's the thing. Let me just tell you something. Let me tell you something right now. I pulled up a fact because this is my wife's favorite game. The walls of the city are 1.9 miles long, and there are 52 massive towers in the city wall. So there you go. There's some facts because I put them on the ends. So there we go. We bookended it. Look, this is a game that a lot of people know and love. We got some love right now. I'm telling you, this game is popular with people. And it's also a lot of ways that people were introduced to the hobby, I think. You can place your meeples down. We could talk about this game all day long. Place your meeples down on a road, in a city. You can lay them in a field if you choose to play with that rule. That is an option according to the newest rule book. But the idea is collecting the most points. And cities and roads and all these pieces score in different ways. But the cool thing about this is the expansions that continue to come. And this is a game that is very easy to teach. So when you're trying to get someone into games, for me, I think it's just really neat to see this game on the table. I've seen some really cool versions where people have pulled a bunch of the expansions up and put them all at once, which is massive and takes forever. But this is a go-to. Carcassonne, the game itself, is also the oldest one on my list. This was from 2000, and this has so many iterations. It is actually, according to the Board Game Geek, the number 33 family game and ranked overall at 179. So that's a pretty good spot to hold after 21 years.
Sure.
But Carcassonne, if you don't know Carcassonne, come on board with Board Game Arena or some other place. I will play the game with you. I'll teach you it. This is a game worth learning, and I don't think social distancing needs to be a challenge in that. I think that all three of us could teach this game fairly straightforward over a Board Game Arena.
Yeah.
And with that said, I would bring it back to the people. I'd bring it back to you guys to talk about this game, but I'd also bring it back to the people to talk about maybe a game that they like. So feel free to drop that in the comments as well. What do you guys think about this list, be it the last pick or overall? Any games you're surprised we didn't see in the five?
I'm actually surprised I didn't add Carcassonne. That's such a good choice. It's a great game for kids. It's a good intro game to tile placement or taking your turns or just a little bit of strategy. It's a wonderful game. I'm hoping myself to own all those unique versions of Carcassonne. So for example, like right now, I have this one, and I am looking for the expansion for this one. But I have friends who are actually in the chat that lent me their winter edition. I'm hoping to eventually get a copy of that. Gold Rush. There's all sorts of expansions that add little tactile things. There's one that's called Catapults, which you actually have a little springboard.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah, the dexterity one.
There's a lot of different iterations of this game that just add a thing here and there.
Things off shelves. This is the other one that I have, the Castle. 2-player version.
For that one too. It looks
I
fantastic.
paid $30 online for this on a really good deal because every time I ever saw it was like 50 plus. But since you're pulling stuff off shelves, I got to do it.
Why not?
We have a great comment here, by the way. Have kids, can confirm. Yeah, it's true. It does work great with teaching the kids. And I will say the Star Wars one I'd love to play. It sounds like Isabel would love to play that one too. I love it, guys. Any other things that you think we've missed in this? There's a lot of great city titled games. If you look this up online, there's a ton. So if something did not make the cut, you can imagine why. It was a tough list to put together as you guys were doing your top 5. And for me, going to the community, that's a big reason why I wanted to do it. So I'll try to do this again in the future because I think it can add some nice variety into it as I try to just pull what the most common names I saw were.
So the one that I thought I would bring up, Kalis. Now, Kalis is a game that I tried my best to play beforehand, and I did. And I really did like it. I think Kalis is a great game. But I do want to try the newer edition, Kalis 1303, which seems to improve on some of those mechanics. I don't know if it does improve on the mechanics, but it looks like it from what I've read and from what I've seen. It looks like an improvement overall of the base game Kalis, which Kalis is a really solid worker placement game and is also high on the cutthroatiness level as well.
There's a simplified one too called Kalis Magna Carta. If you've ever,
I heard, yeah, I haven't tried that one yet either.
We also have a mutual friend that suggested Bruges. It's one of the one that he really enjoys as well. So
yeah, Bruges is a great solid game.
I'm also just really quickly before I say thank you to both of you, I'm kind of double checking. We got a lot of great suggestions. So I do want to say to everyone on Twitter, please go on over. It's the TT Express. Follow on there. Obviously, like and subscribe here if you want to see more videos. If you've got suggestions of what you want to see, Ryan Clementz is here, and Ryan, you've often seen in the chat. So I love the idea of bringing you in. If you got ideas, we can do it. We can have some fun. And this one came from Ryan. This was his suggestion. So I want to thank you for the suggestion because honestly, this was just a fun topic to do. And I know there's a ton of other ones we can do out there. I'd argue, as it got mentioned, the fantasy cities or nonfiction, the fictional cities could be a really fun topic for a game list because there's enough of them out there. I mean, there's this game called Everdell that some people seem to like right now that might fit that. I'm not sure.
It's okay.
I think you had
it's really good.
I like it, but I'm just saying there's a big Kickstarter on that right now, so it's on the mind of many, I'm sure.
I think fictional would be Arnak for me. That's what I would probably pick.
We do have some great comments in here, by the way. So some suggestions for that next one too. I will say this, guys. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Thank you to everyone who took the time to watch live. Appreciate you coming in on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. To Ryan Squared over here. Appreciate both of your time. And we will be back, Ryan. We're coming back a week from now. And we'll be doing the first edition of Marvel Monday. We'll be talking about Marvel Champions.
I'm excited.
Really looking forward to this one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good Marvel Champion stuff to talk about. This will be a monthly video. We'll be doing this every month and following up on new cards and new strategies and all that good jazz. So hopefully you can come by and check that out. Where else can everyone find videos of Ryan? He's on a bunch of other videos, so I will probably put a link to some of those in the description after the fact. And Ryan Clementz, I do not think we've seen the last of you, so thank you for stopping by and hanging out with us tonight, and again, bringing your good ideas.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And with all that said, I've got one last thing to say to all of you. Thank you so much for coming aboard the Tabletop Express. We look forward to seeing all of you soon. Check out the channel, like, subscribe, and I will catch you up on the flip side. Talk to you soon.
Nice.